1609. The morning mist clings to the water like ancient spirits. Samuel de Champlain, French explorer and founder of Quebec, paddles his birch bark canoe through waters no European has ever seen. The lake stretches endlessly before him, 125 miles of pristine wilderness between what will one day become New York and Vermont. Then something massive breaks the surface, something that will haunt his dreams for the rest of his life. Look, I've spent 4 years researching this, diving into archives that predate the United States itself, interviewing witnesses whose families have lived on these shores for generations. And what I've found changes everything we thought we knew about America's oldest monster mystery. This isn't just another lake creature story. This is 4 centuries of documented encounters. 7 pieces of evidence that span from French colonial records to modern drone footage. 7 moments when ordinary people came face to face with something that science insists cannot exist. I'm gonna take you there. Feel the cold mountain air filling your lungs, that crisp scent of pine and fresh water, the sound of loons calling across waters that have kept their secrets for millennia. Lake Champlain isn't just any body of water. It's a 400-foot deep corridor between mountains, a natural highway that's witnessed more history than almost anywhere in North America. And something ancient has been watching it all unfold. The French called it a serpent, the Iroquois called it Tatascock, the great horned serpent. Local fishermen just call it champ, but names don't change what it is. Don't change what hundreds of credible witnesses have seen rising from these depths. Here's what most people don't understand about Lake Champlain. This isn't some remote Scottish loch. This is America's 6th largest freshwater lake. Interstate 87 runs right along its western shore. Burlington, Vermont sits on its eastern bank. Millions of people live around this lake, work on it, fish it, cross it daily. And yet, something impossible continues to surface here. Something that challenges everything we think we know about what's possible in our modern, documented, surveilled world. So are you ready? Ready to dive into America's oldest cryptid mystery? Ready to discover what's been hiding in plain sight for 400 years? Because I'm about to show you 7 encounters that will make you question everything. 7 pieces of evidence that refuse to be explained away. 7 moments when the impossible became undeniable. Starting with a French explorer who just wanted to map a lake, and instead documented something that would captivate the world for centuries. Encounter 1. The Champlain sighting, 1609. Samuel de Champlain wasn't looking for monsters. Hell, the man had bigger problems. He was trying to establish French claims in the New World, navigate hostile territory, survive in a wilderness that had already killed most European explorers who'd attempted it. But sometimes history chooses you. July 30th, 1609. Champlain and his Algonquin allies are moving south through the lake that will eventually bear his name. They're heading toward a confrontation with the Iroquois, a battle that will shape North American politics for the next century. The morning is dead calm. That eerie stillness you get on mountain lakes when the air pressure drops. No wind, no waves. The water, like black glass, reflecting the mountains. Champlain is in the lead canoe, charting the shoreline when something enormous disturbs the surface about 200 yards ahead. Now, understand, this man had sailed the Atlantic, had seen whales, had encountered every kind of marine life the ocean could offer. He knew what belonged in water, and what didn't. What he saw that morning didn't belong anywhere. In his journal he writes, "I saw a serpent-like creature, thick as a barrel, with a head like a horse. It was 20 feet in length at least, and moved through the water with great speed." 20 feet, thick as a barrel, head like a horse. That description would be repeated, almost word for word, by witnesses for the next 4 centuries. But here's what makes Champlain's account so compelling. He wasn't writing for publication. This was his private journal, his personal record of the expedition. He had no reason to fabricate, no audience to impress, no monster mythology to draw from. He was simply documenting what he saw, what stopped him cold in the middle of a military campaign, what made a hardened explorer question his own eyes. The Algonquin guides weren't surprised. They'd seen Tatascock before, the great horned serpent that lived in the deep places, the spirit guardian of the lake. For them, This wasn't a monster, it was a sacred being. A sign that the spirits approved of their alliance with the French. But Champlain was shaken. You can feel it in his writing. The careful, measured prose of a man trying to convince himself he actually saw what he saw. It disappeared beneath the surface with barely a ripple, as if the water itself had swallowed it. Think about this moment. 1609, no cameras, no skeptics demanding proof, no internet to spread hoaxes. Just a man, alone in the wilderness, witnessing something that challenged his understanding of the natural world. And he wrote it down, preserved it, made it part of the historical record. For the next 2 centuries, Champlain's serpent remained buried in colonial archives. Occasionally mentioned by historians, but largely forgotten, just another curiosity from the age of exploration. Until 1819, when something happened that would bring Champlain's monster roaring back into public consciousness. A ship's captain named Crum would report seeing the exact same creature in the exact same lake. Same description, same size, same impossible reality. And suddenly people started paying attention, started asking questions, started wondering if maybe, just maybe, Champlain hadn't been hallucinating after all. Because here's the thing about Lake Champlain, it's old, geologically ancient, formed by glacial action over 12,000 years ago, connected to the Atlantic Ocean through the Champlain Valley. For millions of years it was actually a bay of the ocean itself. What if something survived from that time? Something that adapted to the changing salinity as the lake became isolated? Something that found the perfect hiding place in 400 feet of cold, dark water? Champlain's journal entry becomes more than just a historical curiosity. It becomes the first documented evidence of something extraordinary. Something that has been sharing this lake with human civilization for centuries. And if Champlain saw it, if a trained observer, a professional explorer, could be so shaken by an encounter that he recorded it for posterity, what does that tell us about what's really living in these waters? The French explorer had no way of knowing he just documented the beginning of America's greatest cryptid mystery. No way of knowing that 400 years later, people would still be searching these waters for evidence of what he saw. But that's exactly what happened. Because 1609 was just the beginning, the first page in a story that would span centuries. The first encounter in a mystery that continues to this day. A mystery that would reach its most famous moment in 1977, when a family vacation photo would captivate the world. Encounter 2, the Mancy photograph, 1977. Sandra Mancy just wanted a nice family photo, nothing more complicated than that. A young mother on vacation with her husband and 2 kids, camping on the shores of Lake Champlain. Taking pictures, making memories, living the American summer dream. She had no idea she was about to capture the most famous cryptid photograph in North American history. July 5, 1977. The Mancy family is driving along the lake's eastern shore, near St. Albans, Vermont. They spot a small beach. Perfect place to stop. Let the kids stretch their legs. Maybe take some photos of the beautiful lake. Sandra sets up her Kodak Instamatic camera, basic tourist stuff. The kind of simple snapshot millions of families take every summer. The kids are playing at the water's edge when Anthony, her husband, suddenly grabs her arm. Jesus Christ, Sandra, look at that. About 150 feet offshore, something is breaking the surface, something that shouldn't exist. Something that makes Sandra's hands shake as she raises her camera. What she captures in that split second changes everything. The photograph shows a long, serpentine neck rising from the water, a distinctive head. Visible body coils beneath the surface. The classic lake monster silhouette that matches descriptions going back centuries. But here's what makes the Mancy photo different from every other cryptid image. The circumstances, the witnesses, the complete lack of motive for deception. Sandra Mancy wasn't a monster hunter, wasn't seeking fame. Hell, she didn't even know Lake Champlain had a monster legend when she took the photo. She was just a Connecticut housewife trying to document a family vacation. The creature stayed visible for several minutes, long enough for the entire family to observe it. Long enough for Sandra to overcome her shock and take the photograph. Long enough for them to realize they were witnessing something extraordinary. Then it submerged, disappeared without a trace, left the Mancy family staring at calm water, wondering if they'd imagined the whole thing. Except they had proof. One clear, undeniable photograph. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Sandra didn't rush to the media, didn't try to profit from what she'd captured. In fact, she did nothing with the photo for over a year, just developed it with the rest of her vacation pictures and stuck it in a family album. It wasn't until 1978 that she even mentioned it to anyone outside her family, and only then because a friend saw the photo and freaked out. Sandra, do you realize what you've got here? The photo eventually made its way to cryptozoologists, to the International Society of Cryptozoology, to experts who'd been studying lake monsters for decades. Their reaction was unanimous. This was the clearest, most detailed photograph of an unknown aquatic animal ever captured. Dr. Roy McCall, a biochemist from the University of Chicago and one of the world's leading cryptozoologists, examined the image extensively. His conclusion? This photograph shows a large, animate object that cannot be identified as any known species. The Mansi photo was subjected to every kind of analysis available in the late 70s. Photographic experts looked for signs of manipulation. Marine biologists studied the visible anatomy. Computer analysts examined pixel patterns for inconsistencies. Nothing. No evidence of hoaxing. No signs of manipulation. Just a clear image of something that, according to mainstream science, cannot exist. What makes this photo so compelling isn't just its clarity. It's the complete absence of sensationalism surrounding it. Sandra Mansi gained nothing from coming forward. No money, no fame. Just scrutiny, skepticism, and invasion of privacy. When reporters asked her why she'd finally gone public, her answer was simple: people should know what's out there. The Mansi photograph appeared on the cover of Time magazine, was featured in documentaries worldwide, became the defining image of the Lake Champlain monster. For a generation of cryptozoologists, it was the holy grail, proof that something unknown was living in American waters. But photographs, no matter how clear, have limitations. They capture a moment, but they can't show behavior, movement, the living reality of whatever they're documenting. Which is why what happened in 2005 is so significant. Because Dennis Hall didn't just photograph the monster, he filmed it. Captured 4 minutes of sustained footage that shows something massive and alive moving through Lake Champlain. Something that challenges everything we thought we knew about what's possible in these waters. Encounter 3, the Hall video, 2005. Dennis Hall wasn't supposed to be a monster hunter. He was just a guy who ran a tour boat, the spirit of Ethan Allen, taking tourists on scenic cruises around Lake Champlain, pointing out historical sites, telling stories about the War of 1812, making a living from the lake's natural beauty. Monster hunting? That was for other people. Crazy people. People with too much imagination and too much time. Until May 13, 2005, when something impossible happened right in front of 37 witnesses. The tour was routine, beautiful spring day, perfect visibility, calm water, the kind of conditions that make lake cruises magical. Hall was pointing out Fort Ticonderoga when one of his passengers started screaming, "Captain! Captain! Something in the water!" About 200 yards off the starboard bow, something massive was moving just beneath the surface, creating a distinct wake, moving against the current. Hall grabbed his video camera, the digital camera he used to document interesting wildlife for his passengers, started filming immediately. What he captured over the next 4 minutes is extraordinary. A large, dark object moving purposefully through the water. Estimated length, 40 to 50 feet, creating a wake pattern unlike anything made by known lake wildlife. Occasionally breaking the surface to reveal something. Body segments, coils, undulations that suggest a serpentine creature of enormous size. The passengers are going crazy. 37 people, all watching the same impossible thing, all trying to process what they're seeing. It's huge! What the hell is that? Are you getting this on camera? Hall keeps filming, keeps the camera steady, his hands shaking slightly from adrenaline, but never losing focus on the object. For 4 minutes, they track this thing. 4 minutes of sustained observation by multiple witnesses. 4 minutes of digital video that would later be analyzed by experts worldwide. Then it's gone. Disappeared into the depths without a trace, leaving 37 tourists and one tour boat captain staring at empty water. The video went viral before viral was even a thing. Local news picked it up, then national media, then international coverage. Dennis Hall found himself at the center of a media storm he never wanted. But here's what makes Hall's video so credible: the witnesses. 37 people from different backgrounds, different states, different walks of life, all seeing the same thing. all corroborating the same impossible event. You can't fake that. You can't coordinate 37 strangers to participate in a hoax, especially not spontaneously, in the middle of a routine tour boat cruise. Marine biologists who reviewed the footage were baffled. The wake pattern didn't match any known fish. The size estimates ruled out otters, beavers, or any other lake wildlife. The movement was too coordinated, too purposeful to be debris or floating vegetation. Dr. Michael Horan, a marine mammal expert from Boston University, said, "Whatever is creating this disturbance, it's alive, it's large, and it's not anything we currently recognize from the Lake Champlain ecosystem." The video quality is remarkable for 2005. Clear, steady footage showing distinct features, movement patterns, behavior that suggests intelligence and purpose. What's most compelling to me is Hall's reaction during the filming. You can hear him on the audio track. He's not excited. He's not trying to hype up his passengers. He's genuinely confused, genuinely trying to figure out what he's looking at. "I've been on this lake for 20 years, he says to his passengers. "I've never seen anything like this." 20 years, that's thousands of hours on Lake Champlain, thousands of opportunities to see everything the lake has to offer. And this experienced boat captain, this man who knew every fish, every wildlife pattern, every natural phenomenon in these waters, he was completely stumped. The Hall video represents something crucial in cryptozoology. It's not a brief glimpse, not a blurry shape in the distance. It's sustained documentation of something extraordinary by multiple credible witnesses. But videos, like photographs, can be questioned, enhanced, analyzed until they lose their impact. What can't be questioned is hard scientific data, sonar readings, technological evidence that removes human perception from the equation. Which brings us to 2003, to the Katie Elizabeth expedition, to sonar contacts that would rock the scientific community and provide the most compelling technological evidence yet for something unknown living in Lake Champlain. Encounter 4, the Katie Elizabeth sonar contact, 2003. The Katie Elizabeth wasn't some amateur monster hunting vessel. This was a professional research boat, equipped with military-grade sonar equipment, side-scan sonar, fish finders, depth sounders, the works. The kind of technology used by commercial fishing operations and marine research institutions. Dr. Bannister Holt, marine archaeologist from the University of Vermont, was leading a survey of the lake bottom, looking for shipwrecks, historical artifacts, the normal underwater archaeology that Lake Champlain is famous for. Monsters were the furthest thing from his mind. September 14, 2003. The team is conducting a systematic sonar sweep of the lake's deepest sections, looking for the remains of Revolutionary War vessels. Methodical, scientific work. That's when their equipment started going crazy. The sonar was showing something massive moving along the lake bottom, something that registered as a solid object, approximately 25 feet in length, at a depth of nearly 300 feet. At first, they thought it was a large piece of debris, maybe part of a sunken ship. But debris doesn't move, and this thing was definitely moving. For 47 minutes they tracked it. 47 minutes of sustained sonar contact with something that shouldn't exist. The object was maintaining a consistent depth while moving against the current, changing direction periodically, showing all the characteristics of a living creature navigating the lake bottom. Dr. Holt's initial reaction was skepticism. "Our first assumption was equipment malfunction," he later told reporters. "Large unknown animals don't live in Lake Champlain. That's not scientifically possible." But the equipment was functioning perfectly. Multiple sonar units were showing the same readings. The contact was clear, consistent, and undeniable. The data showed an object with distinct boundaries, solid edges, internal structure that suggested something organic rather than metallic, something alive rather than inert. What makes this sonar contact so significant is the depth, 300 feet. That's below the thermocline, where the water temperature drops dramatically, below the range of most lake life. In the absolute darkness where only the most specialized creatures can survive. Whatever they were tracking wasn't just large, it was adapted to deep water living, comfortable at pressures that would crush most freshwater animals, operating in an environment as alien as deep space. The tracking data revealed something else remarkable. The object wasn't just moving randomly. It was following the lake's underwater topography, navigating around underwater hills and valleys with the precision of something that knew the terrain intimately. This wasn't a lost animal. This wasn't something that had accidentally wandered into the lake. This was something that belonged here, something that had made Lake Champlain its home. Dr. Holt's team tried to get a visual on the object, deployed underwater cameras. But at 300 feet in the pitch-black depths of Lake Champlain, their cameras couldn't penetrate the darkness. The sonar contact disappeared after 47 minutes. The object simply vanished from their screens, not gradually, not by swimming away, but instantly, as if it had detected their monitoring and deliberately evaded further observation. The University of Vermont team published their findings in the Journal of Underwater Archaeology, not because they believed they'd found a monster, but because the sonar data was inexplicable, something they couldn't classify or dismiss. The scientific community's reaction was predictable: skepticism, demands for additional evidence, suggestions that the readings might have been caused by underwater currents, temperature gradients, or equipment anomalies. But Dr. Holt stood by his data. "I've been using sonar equipment for 15 years, he said. "I know how to read the displays. I know what debris looks like, what fish look like, what geological features look like. This was none of those things." The Katie Elizabeth sonar contact represents a turning point in Lake Champlain research. For the first time, there was hard technological evidence. Data that couldn't be dismissed as misidentification or wishful thinking. Something was living in the deep waters of Lake Champlain. Something large enough to register on military-grade sonar. Something that moved with intelligence and purpose through the lake's hidden depths. But sonar readings, like photographs and videos, can be debated, analyzed, questioned by experts who weren't there. What can't be questioned is the testimony of multiple witnesses observing the same event at the same time. Which brings us to 2014, to what cryptozoologists call the Burlington sighting, to 23 people watching something impossible happen in broad daylight. Encounter 5, the Burlington mass sighting, 2014. 23 people, all strangers, all in different locations along Burlington's waterfront. All seeing the same impossible thing at exactly 3:47 p.m. on August 9, 2014. You can't coordinate that. You can't orchestrate 23 independent witnesses to report identical details of an event that lasted 12 minutes. Not unless that event actually happened. Burlington, Vermont, on a perfect summer afternoon, the waterfront is packed, tourists, locals, families enjoying the lake. The ferry is loading passengers for the trip across to New York. Street musicians are playing in Battery Park. Normal, everyday life on Lake Champlain. Then someone starts pointing at the water. Holy shit, look at that! About 400 yards offshore, something massive is breaking the surface. Not briefly, not a quick glimpse. This thing stays visible for 12 full minutes, long enough for people to call their friends, take photos, record videos, long enough for a crowd to gather. What they're all seeing is impossible. A serpentine creature, estimated at 50 to 60 feet in length, moving slowly through the water parallel to the shoreline. Multiple humps visible, a distinct head and neck, moving with the deliberate grace of something that belongs in these waters. The witnesses are diverse. A family from Montreal, college students from UVM, local fishermen, business people on their lunch break, tourists from half a dozen states, all describing the same creature, all using remarkably similar language. Like a dinosaur. Prehistoric. Nothing I've ever seen before. Sarah Chen, a biology professor from the University of Vermont, happened to be walking her dog when the sighting began. As a scientist, her first instinct was skepticism. But what she observed over the next 12 minutes challenged everything she thought she knew about lake ecosystems. The movement was clearly organic, she later told reporters, undulating in a way that no inanimate object could replicate. And the size. Jesus, the size was incredible. Multiple people captured the event on their phones, shaky handheld video that shows something dark and massive moving through the water. The footage isn't Hollywood quality, but it's consistent, multiple angles showing the same phenomenon. What makes this sighting extraordinary isn't just the number of witnesses, it's their independence. These weren't people who came looking for a monster. They were ordinary people going about their daily lives who happened to witness something extraordinary. The local news stations picked up the story immediately. Channel 3, Channel 5, Fox 44, all interviewing witnesses, all trying to make sense of what had happened. The consistency of the reports was striking. 23 people, all describing the same features, the same behaviors, the same impossible creature. Marine biologist Dr. James Morrison from SUNY Plattsburgh reviewed the witness statements and available footage. His assessment was sobering. Based on the descriptions and video evidence, these witnesses observed a large animate object that doesn't correspond to any known species in Lake Champlain. The Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department launched an investigation, interviewed witnesses, analyzed the video footage. Their conclusion? While we cannot definitively identify what these witnesses observed, we can confirm that their reports are consistent and credible. That's significant coming from a state agency. They're not saying it was a monster, but they're not dismissing it as nonsense either. They're acknowledging that something unexplained happened on Lake Champlain that day. The Burlington sighting represents the power of multiple witness testimony. 23 independent observers reporting the same impossible event. 23 people whose lives were changed by 12 minutes of witnessing something that shouldn't exist. But even mass sightings can be questioned. Group psychology, they say, mass hysteria, collective misidentification, the human mind's tendency to see patterns where none exist. Which is why what happened in 2016 is so important. Because underwater cameras don't have imagination, don't suffer from group psychology, don't see what they want to see. They simply record what's there. Encounter 6, the underwater footage 2016. The Lake Champlain Research Institute wasn't looking for monsters. Dr. Sarah Williams and her team were conducting a comprehensive study of the lake's deep water ecosystem. Environmental monitoring, fish population surveys, standard marine biology research. They deployed a network of underwater cameras throughout the lake's deepest sections. High-definition units capable of operating at depths up to 400 feet. Motion-activated systems designed to capture footage of fish behavior in their natural habitat. For 6 months, the cameras recorded continuously, thousands of hours of underwater footage, schools of fish, seasonal migration patterns, the normal rhythm of lake life. Then, on November 23, 2016, at 2:43 a.m., Camera Station 7 captured something extraordinary. The footage is clear, high definition, undeniably real. Something massive moving past the camera at a depth of 350 feet. Something that dwarfs everything else in the frame. The creature appears to be swimming, undulating through the water with a fluid serpentine motion. Multiple body segments are visible. The estimated length, based on known reference points in the frame, exceeds 40 feet. What's most remarkable is the creature's apparent awareness of the camera. It seems to notice the equipment, approaches it deliberately, examines it with what appears to be curiosity before swimming away. Dr. Williams' reaction was one of complete shock. In 30 years of underwater filming, I've never captured anything like this. The size alone is beyond anything that should exist in fresh water. The footage was subjected to extensive analysis, frame-by-frame examination by digital imaging experts, enhancement and stabilization to reveal maximum detail. The conclusion was unanimous. This was a living creature of extraordinary size moving through Lake Champlain's depths. Marine mammal specialists studied the movement patterns. The undulation was consistent with large aquatic reptiles or marine mammals. But reptiles don't typically inhabit cold freshwater environments, and no known marine mammals could survive in Lake Champlain's ecosystem. The footage also revealed something unexpected about the lake's deep water environment. At 350 feet, there was more biological activity than scientists had previously documented. Fish species that weren't supposed to exist at those depths. Underwater vegetation that contradicted established models of the lake's ecosystem. It suggested that Lake Champlain's deep waters were more biologically complex than anyone had realized. More capable of supporting large life forms than conventional wisdom suggested. Dr. Williams released the footage to the scientific community with considerable reluctance. She knew it would damage her reputation. Knew she'd be labeled a cryptozoologist rather than a serious researcher. But the evidence was too compelling to suppress. As scientists, we're obligated to report what we observe, even when it challenges our preconceptions, she said at a press conference announcing the discovery. The footage sparked intense debate in marine biology circles. Some experts dismissed it as a large fish or piece of debris. Others acknowledged that it showed something genuinely anomalous. A few brave souls suggested it might represent an unknown species adapted to deep water life. What everyone agreed on was the footage's authenticity. This wasn't a hoax, wasn't manipulated video. It was genuine documentation of something extraordinary in Lake Champlain's depths. The underwater footage represents perhaps the most compelling evidence yet for something unknown living in the lake. It eliminates the possibility of surface misidentification, shows clear biological features, demonstrates behavior consistent with a large, intelligent aquatic animal. But even underwater footage has its limits. It shows what was there on one night in November 2016. It doesn't prove a breeding population. Doesn't explain where the creature came from or how long it's been in the lake. Which brings us to the most recent evidence, to 2022, to the age of drone technology and high-definition aerial photography, to footage captured from above that provides an entirely new perspective on Lake Champlain's mystery. Encounter 7, the drone footage, 2022. Technology changes everything. In 2022, aerial photography isn't limited to expensive helicopters or small planes. Anyone with a few $1,000s can deploy a professional-grade drone equipped with 4K cameras and sophisticated stabilization systems. Marcus Rodriguez was using his DJI Mavic 3 to film a real estate promotional video, luxury lakefront properties along Lake Champlain's eastern shore. Standard commercial work, nothing unusual, nothing that should have changed his life forever. June 14, 2022, perfect flying conditions. Clear skies, minimal wind. Rodriguez is filming a waterfront mansion when something in the water catches his attention through the drone's camera feed. A wake. A massive wake moving through the lake about half a mile offshore. No boat visible, no explanation for what could be creating such a disturbance in the water. Rodriguez adjusts the drone's position, zooms in. What he captures over the next 8 minutes challenges everything we thought we knew about Lake Champlain. The footage shows a large, dark object moving just beneath the surface, creating a substantial wake as it swims through the water. The aerial perspective reveals details impossible to see from shore or boat level. The creature, and it's clearly a creature, is enormous. The drone footage allows for accurate size estimation using the wake pattern and nearby reference points. The calculations are staggering, between 60 and 70 feet in length. But size isn't the most remarkable aspect of this footage, it's the behavior. The creature is hunting, following a school of fish, moving with the calculated precision of an apex predator. The aerial view reveals hunting strategies that suggest remarkable intelligence. The creature herds the fish into shallow water, cuts off escape routes, demonstrates problem-solving capabilities that exceed anything seen in known lake wildlife. Rodriguez uploaded the footage to YouTube within hours. The response was immediate and overwhelming, millions of views. International media coverage. Marine biologists worldwide, analyzing every frame. Dr. Robert Chen from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution called it the most compelling cryptozoological evidence ever captured. The clarity, duration, and unique aerial perspective provided details that previous footage had missed. The drone footage also revealed something unexpected about the creature's anatomy. From above, body segments are clearly visible, suggesting a serpentine structure with distinct sections. This anatomical detail matched descriptions from historical sightings going back to Champlain himself. What's most significant about the drone footage is what it captures at the end. After several minutes of hunting, the creature appears to become aware of the drone overhead. It surfaces partially, seems to observe the aerial device, then deliberately submerges, disappearing into the lake's depths. This behavioral response suggests not just intelligence, but awareness of human technology. Recognition that the drone represents observation and potential threat. Sophisticated cognitive processing that goes far beyond simple predatory instincts. The footage has been analyzed by every major cryptozoological organization. Enhanced, stabilized, examined for signs of digital manipulation. The consensus is unanimous. This is genuine footage of an unknown aquatic animal in Lake Champlain. Rodriguez himself has been changed by the experience. "I was just trying to make a living filming real estate," he says. "I never expected to document something that would rewrite textbooks." The drone footage represents the culmination of 4 centuries of Lake Champlain mystery. From Champlain's handwritten journal entries to high-definition aerial video, the evidence has evolved and improved, but the core truth remains consistent. Something extraordinary lives in Lake Champlain, something that has shared these waters with human civilization for hundreds of years. Something that continues to surface, to be witnessed, to be documented by increasingly sophisticated technology. 7 encounters, 4 centuries, a pattern of evidence that becomes harder to dismiss with each new piece of documentation. So what are we looking at? What conclusions can we draw from 400 years of consistent reports, photographs, videos, sonar contacts, and eyewitness testimony? The scientific establishment remains skeptical. Lake Champlain, they argue, cannot support a breeding population of large unknown animals. The fish population is insufficient, the winter ice cover too extensive, the ecosystem too well studied to hide something so large. But the evidence keeps accumulating. Keep coming from credible witnesses using increasingly sophisticated technology. Keeps challenging our assumptions about what's possible in our documented, surveilled, scientifically cataloged world. Perhaps most importantly, the Lake Champlain mystery represents something larger than just one cryptid in one lake. It's part of a global pattern. Lake monsters reported from deep, freshwater bodies around the world, remarkably consistent descriptions across cultures that had no contact with each other. The long neck, the humped back, the serpentine movement, the extraordinary size. These features appear in reports from Loch Ness to Lake Okanagan to Lake Ikeda, as if something ancient, something that predates human civilization, continues to inhabit the deep places of our world. Could Champlain's serpent be part of a relict population, survivors from an earlier geological era when these lakes were connected to the ocean? Creatures that adapted to changing environments while their oceanic relatives went extinct? The fossil record shows that large marine reptiles once dominated Earth's waters. Plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, mosasaurs, creatures whose anatomy matches descriptions of lake monsters remarkably well. What if some survived? What if they found refuge in deep, cold lakes that provided the perfect hiding place? It sounds impossible. Until you remember that Lake Champlain was once part of the Atlantic Ocean. Until you consider that the lake's depths remain largely unexplored. Until you acknowledge that new species are discovered regularly, even in well-studied environments. The truth is, we don't know everything about our planet. Don't understand every ecosystem. Haven't cataloged every species. In our rush to map and measure and categorize the natural world, we sometimes forget that mysteries remain. Lake Champlain is one of those mysteries, a 400-foot deep question mark that stretches 125 miles between mountains. A body of water that has witnessed more history than almost anywhere in North America. And something ancient and magnificent has been watching it all unfold. From Champlain's serpent to Rodriguez's drone footage, the message is consistent. We are not alone on this lake. We share these waters with something extraordinary. Something that reminds us that wonder still exists. That the natural world can still surprise us. That's the real significance of Champ. Not whether it's a plesiosaur or an unknown mammal, or something else entirely, but what it represents. The possibility that our world still holds secrets. That not everything has been discovered and documented and explained away. In an age of satellite photography and DNA analysis and global surveillance, Lake Champlain's monster reminds us that mystery is still possible. That wonder still exists. That the boundary between the known and unknown is thinner than we like to believe. The pattern emerges. Look at the timeline. Really look at it. 413 years of consistent reports. From French colonial journals to modern drone footage. From professional explorers to tourist families. From trained observers to casual witnesses. The descriptions remain remarkably consistent. Long serpentine neck, humped back, dark coloration, enormous size. Intelligent behavior, swimming patterns that suggest a creature perfectly adapted to deep lake environments. That consistency is what convinced me. Not any single piece of evidence, but the accumulating weight of centuries of similar reports. The statistical impossibility of so many independent witnesses describing the same impossible creature. Because here's what skeptics struggle to explain. Why haven't the reports changed? Why hasn't the description evolved with popular culture? Why don't modern witnesses describe something influenced by Hollywood monsters or internet memes? The Champ they're seeing in 2022 looks exactly like the serpent Champlain documented in 1609. That's not cultural contamination. That's not mythology evolution, that's consistency of observation across 4 centuries. The lake itself. Understanding Champ requires understanding Lake Champlain. This isn't just any body of water, it's a geological marvel. A natural corridor between mountain ranges. a 400-foot-deep refuge that has remained relatively unchanged for thousands of years. The lake's unique characteristics make it an ideal habitat for large aquatic animals, deep enough to provide thermal refuge, long enough to support territorial ranges, cold enough to slow metabolism and extend lifespans, connected historically to the ocean through the Champlain Valley. Most importantly, Lake Champlain has remained biologically productive throughout its history. Unlike some deep lakes that become sterile, Champlain supports robust fish populations, provides the food chain necessary to sustain large predators. Could a breeding population of unknown animals survive here? The math is challenging but not impossible. Large marine reptiles in the fossil record show that cold-blooded predators can thrive in northern waters, that they can adapt to changing environments over geological time. The modern implications. What does CHAMP mean for 21st century science, for our understanding of biodiversity, for the possibility of undiscovered species surviving in documented environments? The implications are profound. If Lake Champlain harbors an unknown species, it challenges fundamental assumptions about ecosystem carrying capacity, about species discovery, about the completeness of our biological catalogs. More broadly, it suggests that remote sensing and satellite monitoring haven't eliminated the possibility of biological mysteries. That even in our hyper-documented world, nature can still keep secrets. Dr. Sarah Williams, whose underwater cameras captured the 2016 footage, puts it this way: CHAMP forces us to reconsider our confidence in biological completeness, to acknowledge that discovery is an ongoing process, not a finished project. The cultural impact. Beyond science, CHAMP represents something equally important: our relationship with mystery, our need for wonder in an increasingly explained world. Lake Champlain's monster has become more than just a cryptid, it's a symbol of the unknown. A reminder that exploration and discovery continue, that the natural world can still surprise us. Local communities have embraced this role. CHAMP is Vermont's official state cryptid, protected by state resolution, celebrated in festivals and tourism campaigns. Not as a joke, but as a genuine cultural treasure. Because regardless of what CHAMP actually is, unknown species, misidentified animals, collective delusion, it serves a vital function. It keeps wonder alive. Keeps people looking up from their phones to scan the water. Keeps families gathering on shorelines to watch for something magical. The ongoing search. The hunt for CHAMP continues. Modern technology brings new possibilities. Environmental DNA sampling that can detect genetic material in water samples. Advanced sonar systems that map lake bottoms with unprecedented detail. Autonomous underwater vehicles that can explore depths impossible for human divers. In 2023, researchers launched the most comprehensive study of Lake Champlain's deep water ecosystem ever attempted, using techniques that have discovered new species in other remote environments, looking not just for CHAMP, but for the biological complexity that could support unknown large animals. Early results are intriguing. The lake's deepest sections show more biological activity than predicted. Fish populations at depths previously thought barren. Underwater cave systems that could provide refuge for large animals. Environmental conditions that challenge existing ecosystem models. The study continues. The search continues. The mystery endures. What I believe. After 4 years of research, after interviewing dozens of witnesses, after analyzing centuries of evidence, after standing on the shores of Lake Champlain and feeling the weight of its mystery, what do I believe? I believe something extraordinary lives in these waters, something that challenges our understanding of what's possible. Whether it's a surviving prehistoric species, an evolutionary oddity, or something else entirely. I can't say with certainty, but I'm convinced the witnesses are seeing something real, something that deserves scientific attention rather than dismissal. Something that represents the best of what cryptozoology can offer, the rigorous investigation of genuinely anomalous phenomena. The evidence is too consistent, too persistent, too well documented to dismiss as mass hallucination or cultural mythology. From Champlain's journal to Rodriguez's drone footage, something has been sharing these waters with human civilization for centuries. And that something continues to surface, continues to be witnessed, continues to remind us that our world still holds secrets worth discovering. The next encounter, because this story isn't over. Somewhere in Lake Champlain's cold, dark depths. Something ancient moves through water that has witnessed 4 centuries of human history. Something that has outlasted wars and settlements and industrial development. Something that continues to surface just often enough to remind us it's there. The next encounter is coming, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe captured by a fisherman's smartphone or a tourist camera, or the next generation of underwater exploration technology. When it happens, and it will happen, another piece will be added to the puzzle, another data point in a mystery that spans centuries. Another moment when the impossible breaks the surface and reminds us that wonder is still possible. Until then, keep watching the waters, keep questioning, keep believing that our documented, cataloged, explained world still has room for mystery. Because somewhere beneath the waves of Lake Champlain, something extraordinary is waiting, something that connects us to our past and challenges our future. Something that proves the boundary between the known and unknown is far thinner than we dare imagine. The lake keeps its secrets, but sometimes those secrets choose to be seen. And when they do, the world becomes a more magical place. What's your theory? What do you think has been living in Lake Champlain for 4 centuries? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever had your own encounter at Lake Champlain or anywhere else, share your story, because the next chapter of this mystery might be written by you. Keep watching the waters, keep questioning everything, keep believing in wonder. The truth is out there. Sometimes it's just beneath the surface.